What's up, everyone? So as you saw, we're starting to strip the quarter panel on this thing and finding out it's not as bad as what I thought. It was pretty thick, but it's just kind of wavy. I definitely got to replace the rust in there, but it's definitely reworkable. It's just kind of a crappy Bondo job that somebody else did. I got my girlfriend Julianne. She is putting paint stripper on the roof of the car. I like doing it that way. You're just not building the heat and warping and stuff. This stuff's kind of expensive, but it usually bubbles up. You can just scrape it off with a putty knife, and it's actually pretty quick. So another little thing that I do, I'll show you. You probably saw in my opening here, but hold on. So this is an old, I think it's a Harbor Freight buffer, and I use it a lot for stripping stuff. I like it. It's variable speed. And I mean, it's not really the way it's built, but for doing stuff like just hogging out all this Bondo, I mean, I knew it was going to be thick, and I knew I needed to, just get it out of there as quick as I could. That's a 36 grit paper on there. And a lot of times when people are doing stuff on these cars, they're worried about, like, I don't know, being too aggressive or whatever. Well, if you don't use a heavy enough, sandpaper or whatever, and you're just going around and you're spending a lot of time, you'll actually build a lot of heat and you'll warp a panel. So the trick is have something aggressive enough to get the stuff out of there as quick as possible and move around a lot, and just, again, keep it as cool as you can. But I use this thing actually more than I use, this is basically a giant DA. I've known these as called mud hogs, whatever, and they're great for shaping Bondo and stuff and stripping everything. But a lot of people don't have a compressor big enough to run these. They take a lot of air, and yeah, and then you get, when it's cold like this, you're fighting the air and all that. So for just your general stripping of paint and Bondo and all that, this DA, or this buffer, like I say, I think this thing was like 30 bucks or something like that. It was cheap, but it works great. And I've used this thing for years, and I have stripped tons of paint and different stuff with it. And it's just something to use in your garage if you're doing this stuff. So kind of keep that in mind. So here's another look at this quarter. I got most of the mud out of the way, and you can see they drilled holes. Back in the day, it was a lot of guys used a slide hammer, drill a hole, put a bolt or a wood screw in there, and pull all this out. And usually they never welded them up. They just put Bondo over it, and they thought, oh well, the Bondo goes through, seals it, and helps hold the inch or two of mud on there. So I'm gonna get all this cleaned up and just see, and then I'll have to probably weld these holes up. I want to get, this thing's just wavy. It's like it's definitely workable, and it might need a little shrinking and stuff in some spots, but it's definitely, that'll be fixable, and I can use a lot less mud than they did. This fender lip in here, that just kind of goes into no man's land. I don't know, it just needs reworked a little bit. And then I definitely have to cut this out and redo this rust. And we'll see how far up, you try and start welding some of this, and it'll start blowing out. It'll be thinner than what it looks, but there's a marble right there. Yeah, oh, there's a whole bunch of marbles in there. So, yeah, all kinds of good stuff in there. But yeah, we'll get all that cut out, and I mean, I'm probably gonna come back into here and probably just weld it in on this body line here, and then kind of redo this fender lip. So let's see what we got in here. And this is what we're using on the roof. I mean, you can get this stuff, there's all kinds of different brands and stuff, but you just brush it all on, and I don't know, we'll show you if it's blistering up. Yeah, it'll just start, you can see the paint starting to kind of bubble up and everything here, and you can just start scraping it off. Oh yeah, it's melting all through there. And as she was brushing it on, it actually is melting. You don't want to get this stuff on your hands. Wear gloves and all the other stuff. Don't get it on any clothes, or don't wear clothes that you care about, because this stuff will kind of melt depending on what it is. It's definitely some harmful stuff. So, but yeah, you can see kind of right, where am I? Right in here, starting to bubble up. But yeah, then you can just take a putty knife and scrape it off, and you're not building that heat. I like to do that on these great big panels, the roof, the trunk, hood, stuff like that. Instead of running a DA and working them out, you can just hit it with this stuff and just scrape it off, and you're not hurting the metal at all. So keep that in mind also. Well, we're committed now, so I kind of want to see what's in this quarter panel, so I'm going ahead, I'm stripping it. And it's like, well, between the roof being stripped, this being stripped, I'm 2 doors, trunk, and a nose from being down to metal, and I'll know exactly what's under this car. And you know, this, I don't know, I just kind of want, and I think this paint is like a lacquer or something. It strips kind of like a color crayon. It just more melts and does everything. So that's, again, having a nice aggressive sandpaper. Just get it off, get it out of there. And I mean, as you can see, I'm going over, I'm getting all the nasty stuff off, and then I'll get all the other, you know, the paint underneath, and I can spend more time on that. But I just want to get this yellow off of here. But that brings me to another thing, is your sandpaper. And I know it's expensive, but I mean, if you're going to strip a car and, you know, if you can't afford to have it dipped or sandblasted or whatever, and you're going to strip it like this or something, just make sure to, you know, when your sandpaper gets worn out or is full of paint and everything, I know it sucks to have to, like, you know, you put one on, you get a couple of, you know, passes with it and it loads up, or if you're using Bondo and you load up a piece with Bondo and it's because you hit it too soon, get rid of it, because what you're going to do is you're going to build a bunch of heat. You're going to start warping your panels, and it's going to create more problems for you. So when that paper isn't cutting and stuff, and you find yourself really like digging in and hogging and staying in one spot trying to get a little piece, you know, sanded out or something, you need to change it, because you're going to end up making a hot spot, and that metal will rise up, and you're going to have, you know, you're going to have dents, you're going to have lumps, whatever. So just always keep, like I say, keep moving, and, you know, keep your sandpaper fresh and cutting. That's what it's supposed to do. So, yeah, just another tip that I'm thinking about right now. Well, Julianne's making progress on the roof. As you can see, she's got piles of paint all over, and it's scraping off, and just adding layer, you know, put another layer on and let it melt a little more and scrape a little more. And it's a bit of a process and kind of time consuming, but it's getting it done. And yeah, we're not building any heat or warping anything, so that's a good deal. And then I went ahead and I wanted to see what was under this quarter where I knew it had been hit, and it's actually pretty clean. There's a couple little things to be expected, but I'm pretty much to the point now I can just start working on this lower quarter and get it patched in and everything. But it's looking like this car is going to get a paint job. So I don't know, it's either that, maybe I'll run it in bare metal, I'm not real sure. But I'm stuck between colors. I wouldn't mind doing like I don't know, I like this thing yellow, and maybe keep it yellow, maybe just leave it in primer. I kind of want a 60s vibe. I like, you know, I got my slotted mags and everything I put on everything. But yeah, it's like a yellow primer. I thought it like kind of a flat red. I don't know. I've seen a few, but I don't know. And if you guys have an idea or a color you'd like to see, I already painted my motor yellow, kind of figuring that this thing was going to be yellow. So I've seen them white also, and that looked pretty good. So white with a yellow motor maybe. But yeah, let me know what you guys think as far as a color for this thing. And it's looking like it's going to get some kind of color put on it. So yeah. But yeah, let's move forward. That's the aftermath of stripping that panel. That's all the paint, sandpaper, junk that I've used. And yeah, it definitely takes a bit, but I don't know. The results are good, and I know exactly what I got. Plus, so when I sanded this, I used 36 grit to knock all the major stuff off, and then I went over and just did my DA with some 80 grit. And that gives a good metal etch for primer and Bondo and everything else to stick to. But yeah, so we're pretty much ready for the next step. Alrighty, well, I worked on this part of the quarter here, and it was super lumpy and wavy. It had 1.5 inch thick, probably 3/8, but I was able to shrink it down a little bit. And as you can see all along here, there's little tiny divots and everything. But it's one of those things, like, the more you work this, the more you can, you know, warp and do stuff if you don't really know what you're doing. And at this point, this is like a skin coat of mud. I can have this thing fixed up. This corner up here, I still got to address that. But I got this whole panel is relatively flat now, to where these little lumps and bumps will just, you know, I'll mud it. And so it's like I say, do your best and mud the rest. So I'm going to get that. I got that all ready to go. I'll get this ground out, and then I'm going to make this piece of sheet metal is going to become my lower quarter. So that's going to be tomorrow's project, so stay tuned for more.